So Nick, we saw in the last half of 2025, both platinum, palladium coming out of a depressed price market. And we're also seeing projections of supply deficits well into 2028. With this all in mind, why is now the perfect time to look at ValOre, situated in Brazil, as a potential investment opportunity?
Yeah, no, thank you for that intro. We think it's a great time for us to be developing this asset. As you mentioned, very, very favorable market conditions for developing a platinum palladium project as we have in Pedra Branca in Brazil. For many years now, platinum and palladium has been a really tough environment to be in. Depressed prices has made it very, very difficult to develop new mines and to put new production on. And that's not the case. If we look through 2025, certainly the latter half of 2025, the last 6 months, we had virtually a doubling of platinum prices and likewise in palladium. And I'm sure we'll talk about it, but major drivers of that is a changing demand environment. So significant uplifts in terms of projections for future demand of platinum and palladium. And because you'd had such a prolonged period of depressed prices, you've had just very little investment into new supply. Very, very difficult to develop platinum palladium mines at below $1,000 an ounce, which is what we've been seeing for the last few years. That situation has changed, but it's not quick and it's not easy to find platinum palladium deposits. They're difficult to find. Economic concentrations of platinum palladium are very, very scarce. As you mentioned, the majority, 80% of the world's reserves of platinum sitting in South Africa. It's a highly concentrated operation, a highly concentrated environment. But with us, a project in Brazil, it sits outside of that. It's a great location for us to be and a great time to be developing this project.
I'm learning about platinum palladium almost for the very first time on camera. Most people may be on the same boat. When we look at 2026, is this rise that we've seen in both metals sustainable? What's the upside here?
Well, we think it is, and I would say you're probably not alone in learning about platinum and palladium. I think among the precious metals, it's perhaps the least understood. I think people understand the dynamics. Gold catches the headlines, silver has caught a lot of the headlines, but when we look at platinum and palladium, I mean they've had an equally remarkable, in some cases more remarkable rise percentage-wise in terms of pricing. But as yet are relatively less understood, and it's interesting. I think it comes down to a couple of factors. One, it's a much smaller market. If you look at sort of total global production of platinum and palladium, so in the order of 6 million ounces per year. Compare that to gold, which is sort of 130 million ounces, which are produced every year. So it's a smaller market, but there's a real industrial demand and a real industrial use case that drives platinum and palladium in particular. So the primary use of platinum and palladium is in autocatalysts. So the autocatalyst, which sits in the exhaust system of an internal combustion engine vehicle, that's cleaning the gases, the exhaust gases, and reducing the level of pollutants within them, is using the noble metals, platinum and palladium, to do that process. So where you have a changing demand environment, which is what we've been seeing through 2025 for vehicles. So the mix between electric vehicles, internal combustion engine vehicles, and hybrid vehicles is what is driving the demand for platinum and palladium. So, if we wind back 12 years ago, there was this view that we would have 100% adoption of electric battery vehicles. The internal combustion engine would be phased out. That hasn't turned out to be the case. 75% of new vehicles sold in the US in 2025 were internal combustion engines. And the biggest growth category within new vehicle sales is hybrid vehicles. Now, hybrid vehicles actually use more platinum and palladium in the autocatalyst because it's a smaller engine, it runs cooler, you've got to use more of those precious metals to get the same effect. So that's really what's been driving the increase in demand for platinum and palladium. The interesting thing with platinum is its use in jewelry, and that's probably the second largest demand driver for platinum. Is the use of platinum in jewelry. It's a great substitute for white gold in certain applications. And with gold prices as high as they are, many jewelers are looking at alternative metals, and platinum is a great use case for that. So particularly in China, we're seeing great growth of the use of platinum in precious jewelry.
And your flagship project is called Pedra Branca. It's got a mix of platinum, palladium, and gold. 10 million so far spent on exploration, with 30 million additional spent from previous operators. What's the path looking like here to production?
That's right. So we've spent a lot on drilling and defining the resource, and we're in a very good position in terms of the resource. We've got 2.2 million ounces of inferred resource there. So very comfortable with what's in the ground. We've done a major campaign through the course of 2025 on sampling and are currently doing metallurgical test work, and that's happening with the University of Cape Town down in South Africa at the moment. We've recently brought on an engineering company to help us prepare the preliminary economic assessment, which we're targeting to publish later this year. So it's really proving out the economics of the project, starting the licensing application, and then looking to develop that and bring it into operation. That's our path.
Now, other than Pedra Branca, I understand that M&A is important as well for the company in Brazil. What's the thesis there? What kind of projects are you going to be picking up this year?
That's right. Yeah, so we see ourselves ultimately as an integrated precious metals producer. We're looking actively within Brazil. We still think Brazil is one of the most prospective regions of the world for precious metals generally, platinum, palladium, gold as well. And we think it's a really interesting time at the moment to be looking at that. There is increasing market activity in terms of assets becoming available, and still lots and lots of upside potential. So yeah, we like Brazil. We've been looking for a while, and ultimately looking to build out our portfolio and become a near-term producer.
Lots of upside potential because it's underexplored.
Yeah, so exploration is certainly an element. We issued a press release a while ago of our use of AI-assisted tools in exploration and partnership with Verify, which has been yielding some good results for us in terms of targeting and looking at that. There's a tremendous amount of data. In South America generally, and in particular in Brazil, integrating all of that, collating it, using it to target where we do our exploration is a key thing. And then also, you've got a regulatory system in Brazil where you can move more quickly. There's a route through trial mining, which allows you to get into early stage production, and we see operators who are at that stage and are looking for financing to take up to the next stage as well.
When I'm looking at this as an investor, why else ValOre compared to potential others in the space that I could put my money into?
Sure. I think what distinguishes us is a number of key things. One is the flagship asset. I'm really bullish about Pedra Branca. There just aren't all that many assets in platinum group elements of the sort of quality that we've got at Pedra Branca. In particular, an asset which is sitting in Brazil, good access to infrastructure, is near surface. Our ability to get into it relatively quickly and relatively cost effectively is enhanced. So that in itself, I think, is a big driver. I would say the last thing is the team that we've got. We're very fortunate to have the level of technical expertise and the level of technical ability to go in and take these projects forward and deliver them. So I think those three factors are really compelling. All of that is within the market that we were describing earlier, where it's difficult to see how that gap, that deficit that we mentioned between demand and supply gets filled. So the world needs these projects to come online, and we're very committed to doing that.
Okay, Nick, we're going to end it off there. Thank you for being here.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for having me.
So ValOre Metals, guys, it's VO on CEO.CA for you to go and log in for yourself to check out what the community is saying. Thanks for watching.